Let me get to our guy Zach, who's calling in live
Big
from the fan.
I'm gonna get me a zip.
No, Sean, I need a chain from you. That's what I need.
Okay.
That would round this outfit out well.
Okay, I love
That
it.
would look good. That would look good. What's up, man? How's it going out there? I know the Broncos didn't do well, but do you have anything from the press conference after the game? How are the moods? You know, were the guys feeling optimistic? Like we let one simple lay, but we still can be good. Like, what's the vibes?
Yeah, so I was very curious about that coming out, talking to Sean Payton after the game. I had no idea if he was going to take the Jarrell Casey route of being like, hey, we just got to throw this one out. We got a big game next week. Move on to that. Sometimes we've seen Sean Payton be harder on the Broncos after a win like he was last week. And sometimes he's easy on them after a loss. And today he took a very interesting angle, and where I totally see what Jarrell's saying about, look, this isn't us. We have 8 games on defense that show that we're a good defense. This is just a fluke going up against a great defense or a great offense of Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry. No, Sean's taking the opposite approach. He's saying we've got to embrace the misery and live in this uncomfortable feeling this coming week. So Sean said, we'll be in the building tomorrow. We'll be watching the tape, and it is going to be miserable. It's not going to be fun, and we're going to embrace that and see how the team responds with that. Bo Nix said this is not fun. This is miserable. DJ Jones in the locker room saying, we got whooped. 41-10, whooped. That's what was his exact words, and that's what Sean said. You know, he didn't try to paint this in any other way than it was. A 31-point loss where the offense could not convert, could not stay on the field, and the defense gave up 7 straight scoring drives, including, I think, 5 touchdowns in that span. They did a good job making up for Lil Jordan Humphrey's mistake on the first drive. The defense got a stop there. Then they did not get another drive until late, or another stop until late in the fourth quarter. So Sean's saying, we're sitting in this. It stinks, and you're going to have to sit through it all week this week. And honestly, guys, that was kind of the reaction in the locker room. But then we also talked to Pat Surtain, and he said, our eyes are still on the playoffs. You know, we got to move on from this one. So a little division in there in terms of how they're handling it, just different personalities. But Sean's going to make sure that this week is not fun and that they remember what this 31-point loss feels like. Because Sean, just like you brought up earlier, Todd, Sean knows how to deal with embarrassing losses. He had to do this, unfortunately, about 13 months ago when the Broncos went down to Miami, and that was a much worse loss. They lost by 50, but 31 in the NFL, that's a whooping, and the Broncos are embracing it.
Yeah, for sure. But, Zach, there's a lot of talk about PJ, though. You know what I mean? Missing PJ Locke, and how, you know, if we had him in there, it would have looked so different. I mean, you being there, was it really that different, missing one player, or was it more to the eye that the eye couldn't see?
You know, when the Broncos didn't have Sean Moreno for a game or two, man, and they needed him so bad. They didn't have Todd. They needed you guys. Those are important players. And I'll tell you what, though. I'll tell you what, though, Sean. PJ Locke, he is a good starter in the NFL, but the drop-off that they experienced today was huge, and I do think that it was big. And I think there's a guy on the other side of the ball where they really felt his absence today, and that is Josh Reynolds. Josh Reynolds is a guy that hasn't come in here and put up incredible stats, but Lil Jordan Humphrey, back-to-back weeks, making very key mistakes at the very first possession of both games. And, man, that just kind of put the Broncos offense off on the wrong foot today. And without PJ, I mean, there were 3 or 4 plays that I had written down that if the Broncos get an experienced safety in there, the Ravens aren't having a 53-yard touchdown. They're not having a key first down on third down. There were so many of those plays where maybe it's not necessarily PJ, but just going to a guy in Devin Key who's very young, very inexperienced, hasn't played a lot, going up against Lamar Jackson. Man, it was so tough. And for this Broncos defense, this was just so uncharacteristic of them. But they have to show next week that today was the uncharacteristic day, and that it wasn't just them dominating because they were playing the Carolina Panthers, the New Orleans Saints with their third-string quarterback, all of these poor teams. They have to show that, no, we just had one bad game, and we went through it. Earlier this week, Todd, the Super Bowl 50 defense, one of the best defenses of all time, they gave up 30 points, I believe, once, or you guys gave up 30 points once or twice that season.
But this is 41.
It's true. Not a 40 burger.
Okay.
Not a 40 burger. So they need to put this one in the past and show that, no, that was just one bad game. that we had, and getting PJ back, I think, is going to be big in that. But, I mean, Derrick Henry, you contain him. Derrick Henry has like 30 yards at halftime, 32 yards in the first half. Lamar Jackson had minus 8 yards rushing in the first half. That was perfect. But then you let Lamar Jackson be perfect as well. He finished with a perfect passer rating, 158.3. Then Derrick Henry goes loose in the third quarter, and he gets over 100 yards. I mean, that's a formula for the Baltimore Ravens to win the Super Bowl. And I think today my biggest takeaway is the Broncos aren't there yet. Now, it's not a surprise, and I don't think it's really a disappointment. You know, the Broncos weren't supposed to be a Super Bowl contending team this year, but we got the taste in our mouths of 5-1 in the past 6 games. And it's like, oh, could they be? And now we kind of have to knock them down back to where we thought they were, which is still better than what a lot of people thought they were at the beginning of the season. And they're a playoff team right now. And that's what Pat Surtain said in the locker room. He said, we still have our sights set on the playoffs. We can be that. It's still right there in front of us. So that we kind of found that out today. Now, if the Broncos go out and knock off the Chiefs next week and give them their first loss, then maybe it starts to change a little bit back to that. But that was my biggest takeaway today. The Broncos aren't in the big boys league yet. And the Chiefs, however, playing on a short week next week. The Chiefs are playing tomorrow night against the Bucs, so they'll be coming off a short week, maybe a little banged up after playing the Buccaneers team. Maybe the Broncos can steal one.
Yeah, you got something? I got 2 more. But
I got one. I want to know, you're talking about mental errors and things like that. How big of a mental error you think it was for us to go for those 5 fourth downs, and how big of an issue you think that was in the game? Not alone that, those penalties. I think how bad did those penalties kill us? I think, 10 penalties? Don't get it on 4th down? I think that combination alone for our offense itself was just terrible today.
Yeah, 100%, Jarrell. And after the game, we asked Sean about going for it. They went for it. They turned the ball over on downs, not 1, 2, 3, 4 times. I don't know how many times that's happened in NFL history. I'll do some research after this to see, but that is so unbelievably rare. And essentially, Jarrell, Sean didn't say this, but this is how I interpreted it. He knew that the Broncos are going to have to be unbelievably aggressive, almost to a reckless extent, if they wanted any chance of winning. And I think Sean was okay with a blowout loss if he thought that gave them a chance to win, if that makes sense. He didn't want to necessarily keep the game to a 10, 12-point game. He wanted to win, but he knew if he went for the win, it could come at a pretty big loss. And unfortunately, they fell on that side. So he said coming into the game that they wanted to be very aggressive. And so the Broncos lost the toss, so they didn't get to choose whether they received to start the game. But I think if the Broncos would have won the toss, they would have received to start the game, to give Bo Nix the ball, to be aggressive to start off, because going for it, man, they could have settled for field goals, especially earlier in the game. Yep. And instead of doing that, they left points out there, and it just really started to slip away. We could have been looking at a game where the Broncos are up 16 to 17, or right around 16-17, a 1-point game at halftime. Instead, Bo Nix touches the ball at the very last possession that he had in the first half. They're down 7. Then the next time he touches the ball, the Broncos are down 31-10 because the Ravens perfectly executed the end of game situation, and then or the end of half situation, and then right after halftime they get a touchdown too. The game was over then.
Yeah, the Broncos, they weren't the Broncos we saw the last couple of weeks, and this is the first time that they played I guess some opponents that had all their players, dominant pieces. We talked to Chris Harris right before you came on, and we talked about the trade deadline and, how the Broncos don't have anybody he would fear that can take you up top or anybody that can beat you in the running game. I just got to bring it up real quick. Like, is there a position that you feel like the Broncos need to fill right now when you watch the game?
Well, what are the Broncos going for right now? Are the Broncos going to try to get to that next level and be that Super Bowl contender? Because if so, there's no one out there that's going to save them right now. So I don't think the Broncos, and being around the team today, being around the front office, I don't think the Broncos are going to make a move to come the trade deadline. Maybe they make a small move like trading a backup pass rusher for a late round pick. But I don't think that they're going to make a splash move because I think they understand where this team is at. They're not one player away from making a run at it this year. They're slowly building. And in fact, they're building quicker than I thought, or a lot of people thought they were. So I think they're just going to take a big, deep breath and say, okay, 5-4, we're happy where we are, but we don't think one player can take us over the top. I do think if we're getting into positions, they need a tight end. I thought last week was, a false positive in Vic Fangio's words. I did not think that last week was going to be how the tight ends played consistently for the rest of the season. And today, I think Sean said they had one catch for 4 yards or something like that. I don't even remember what play that was. I think it was early in the game. But, I mean, it just shows just how there's no weapons there. Courtland Sutton, to his credit, the first time he's had back-to-back 100-yard receiving games. And he also threw a touchdown, which was a pretty fun play there. But when you lose by 31 points, there's not much you can reflect on the fun parts, although it was a really cool play. And Bo Nix did a heck of a job. Courtland made a great pass, too.
When you give them targets, you know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying.
I don't know, man. There's so much to think about. It's just hard for me to believe that really no one is open for him to throw to. Really, does it look like that while you're there? Is the Ravens secondary really that good that we couldn't scheme guys open and put more points on the board? Come on now, let's be real.
Well, Sean, to your point, the Ravens have the worst pass defense in the NFL heading into today. Now, they do have a little more talent that suggests. Kyle Hamilton's a hell of a player. Marlon Humphrey's really good as well. But it's not just this week. It's throughout this whole season. It's Courtland Sutton is the Broncos' #1 receiver. And then outside of that, there's a massive drop-off before you get to other guys. And I've liked that we've seen flashes from Troy Franklin. Man, he would have had a touchdown right in this end zone right here if Bo Nix just would have hit him. But I thought overall, I was really impressed from Bo. I come away from this game, despite only putting 10 points up on the board, I thought he took a step in the right direction. So, Sean, I know you probably don't believe after this game, but I do like what I saw from Bo. And honestly, this might have been the offensive line's one of their worst performances. I mean, Bo was running for his life time and time again, so much to an extent that Bo Nix is out here running like 100 yards and throws a completion for 0 yards. That might be the hardest he works for no yards in his entire career.
Yeah,
it was a running back there. Dog.
I don't know. You gotta
he
tell
looked
me
athletic while he was running.
What was the step forward today? Honestly, because this looked like week 2, 3. I mean, it's the same thing. This not. Come on.
I think it was a little bit better, but go ahead, Zach.
Zach, I want to know from you. Yeah, please.
Well, I think Bo showed that he can be the wide receiver 2 on this team, Sean. So that's definitely a step forward.
Yeah, his versatility. I love it.
I think he had pretty good composure throughout the game, especially, like I said, this Ravens pass rush was all over him all game. I thought the offensive line did him no favors, and I thought he did a really good job of staying calm back there in the pocket with all the pressure there. I thought he did a good job of keeping his eyes downfield when pressure was there, manipulating the pocket, sliding out. I think this game could have been a bigger disaster than it was. I think they could have lost by way more. Bo had an opportunity to have some really bad mistakes, and he was able to avoid those, and that's something that Sean Payton talks about all the time with him is he does not feel like you're in harm's way when Bo Nix is your quarterback back there. And I did think that Bo did a good job of minimizing any bad plays, especially, man, when your first pass hits the receiver and it turns into an interception. That is just brutal. And for a rookie, I think he really stayed calm and composed back there.
Love it.
Yeah,
okay,
I agree.
Love
well, we'll let you go, Zach. We got a lot to
it.
talk about. We'll be here tomorrow morning, 11 a.m., and we'll break down the game. And, you know what I'm saying, we'll try to make Sean a believer with our breakdown.
I love it.
And Jarrell, love the shirt. LFB, baby. Yeah! Boom! Let's go! Let's go, baby!
Oh, my goodness. You guys, oh, my goodness.
Let's go! Let's have some go!
It's like, you're in that relationship, everyone
Freaking
on the
hater,
outside
dude.
looking in like, that is not a good relationship. But they stay together. It's like,
Hey, you got to get rid of her, bro.
Yeah.
I love
I love
her.
her.
Represent the
Baby,
gang.
all right.
Were there crab cakes at the game today for the press box?
It's a great question you hear, and this was not a crab cake game, meaning
Dang.
the Baltimore Ravens did not view this as a big game. And you know what? Turns out they were right. They were right about it. When you lose by 31 points, it's not a big game.
Yeah.
You sounded so sad.
All right, Zach. We'll see you tomorrow.
See you, fellas.
I love it. See you, baby. Yes, sir.